Hi and welcome to the channel. So today I'm going to show you how to cook this amazing brisket. You're watching Big House Barbecue, let's get to it. So what I'm going to do today is take you through step by step a real beginner's guide on what you have to do with a brisket. A lot of people are really intimidated by briskets. They look at a big piece of meat, it's expensive. Normally when you're doing these sorts of things you're actually feeding a lot of people, so you've got like a time in mind that you've got to have things done by. There's a lot of expectation and there's a lot of pressure, but actually it's actually quite a simple process. So I'm just going to take you through it nice and easy, and hopefully you can replicate this when you do your own briskets and it'll see you good. So this is a 4 kilo brisket, so it's not the biggest brisket, so 4 kilos is about £9. And the main difference about the briskets here in the UK and the ones in the US is that they tend to have a lot less fat already, or when the way they're processed they tend to end up with a lot less fat on top, so there's a lot less trimming required. I've still done some trimming, but there's no point making a video on that. So all I've literally done is trimmed both sides, so where the meat's oxidized a little bit I've just cut along there, and also it will then allow me to see just how thick that fat capper is and see whether or not I need to do any more trimming. And I've just rounded this side. Now I rounded it at this point because beyond that the meat got too thin and would just burn up in the cook, so there's no point in even leaving it on here. What I tend to do with all these trimmings, I tend to bag them up, stick them in the freezer, and then when I do a brisket or something like that, I've got loads of extra bits I can smoke, stick in there and just add that extra bit of flavour. So nothing is wasted. You can use them in burgers if you want to, but in terms of this brisket and trying to make it so it's when you cut this and serve it to your guests, it's best looking, best tasting brisket you can do. There's just no point. You're not doing yourself any favours by keeping those bits on. So just trim those off, make it look good, make sure it survives to cook nice and happily. Happy days. Okay, so it's time to season this. So first things first is flip it over, because when I cook it I want this side up. Now you don't have to use a binder if you don't want to. If your brisket's already pretty wet you don't actually need one. I like using Worcestershire sauce, but you can use yellow mustard, that's pretty popular as well. But I find that on all my beef and steaks, whatever I'm doing, I found this gives me the best flavour, so I like to add a bit of this on there. Then today, so I'm using 2 rubs. So traditionally in Texas, they've used salt and pepper. I can never open these. Why do I not open before I start the video? But there you go. Right, okay. So in Texas, they traditionally would just use salt and pepper. This one is the Killer Hogs. This is TX Rub, which is primarily salt and pepper. Got a few other bits and bobs in there, probably garlic and what have you as well. Can't read it. I'm going to glass them. So what we're going to do, so season from a good height. Get this going, and a nice decent application across. That looks good. And then I'm also, to give it a bit of colour and also a little bit more flavour, I'm just going to do a really light application of the Killer Hogs BBQ Rub. So this has got a gorgeous colour on it, and that'll just help that look amazing at the end. So that's one side. I flip it over and do the same again. So flip it over. Remember to put the remember to put this on. Okay. Same again. So TX Rub from a good height. Try not to get it in a cup of tea, although it probably tastes quite nice to be honest. Catch all those. Let's do the sides as well. So you can use your hands and then just pat it along as you go. Lifts the sides up, get those. This side's always a little bit tricky. and do the end. Okay, so that's that one done, and then we'll go across with the barbecue rub again. So you can either pick it up or pat it, whichever one you prefer. Do the sides. Okay, perfect. So what I'm going to do is put that to one side. Okay, so while that brisket's hanging out, we're going to leave it for about 10-15 minutes, make sure that rubs adhered nicely. We're going to make a plan. So one thing, I've watched a lot of brisket videos, and one thing that very few people do is make a plan. Now when I started doing briskets, I was so anxious about things. I wanted to know how long would it cook, what temperature did I have to do, what things were I looking for, and when you're trying to get it cooked for a certain time, that's quite overwhelming. So the easiest and most simplest way, and I still do it today, even though I've done loads of briskets, is do a plan. So I've already written my little plan down here, but I'm going to write it on a nice bit of butcher's paper with a Sharpie and set it all out and just talk through the plan, how it's going to go, what things we're going to look for, and ultimately when we need to put it on and when we need to take it off. So let's do that. Now I want to eat this for 5 p.m. tonight, so that's going to be my finish time. So if I put it up here, so 5 p.m. to eat. So with a brisket, it depends on what temperature you're cooking at to how long it's going to take. So for example, if I was going to cook at 225, that would basically take roughly 1.5 hours a pound. So that's what time I'm looking at. But if I cook at 275, well then I'm looking for like a maximum, probably about 45 minutes a pound. So it's quite a big difference in terms of, you know, what temperature you cook at as to how long your cook's going to take. Now this one is 4 kilos, so that's roughly 9 pounds. So that allows me to work out roughly how long it's going to take to cook. So for example, today we're going to do it 275. So if I cook at 275 and I do 9 pounds, that's basically going to tell me I've got 7 hours cook time. Excuse the writing. But I also want to allow it to rest, and I want to at least allow it to rest for 2 hours. So I need to factor that in as well. So 2 hours, and that's to rest. So I've got a total of a 9-hour cook time. So considering I want to eat at 5 p.m, that basically means that I need to put my brisket on at 8 a.m. So here we are, down here at 8 a.m. Okay, so I know straight away that I've got 2 hours rest time. So I need to take it off by 3 p.m. So that's take off. Okay, so that shows me here that this is my 7-hour cook. But I know roughly, and it's probably going to be with a 275 cook, it's probably going to be around, I don't know, maybe 12-ish. Yeah, we'll say about 12 to midday. That's when it's going to stall. Okay, now stall is where the internal temperature of the brisket reaches 165 Fahrenheit. And basically, because you've got a big piece of meat, what happens is that it sweats. All that moisture, the muscles contract, all that moisture comes out, and basically you get a big, loads of water get squeezed out of the actual brisket. And because, just like you and I, when we sweat, it cools us down, it will do exactly the same to the brisket. So normally, I look to wait until hopefully it gets about 170, 165, 170, and that's when I will wrap. And that wrap will allow us to go all the way up to 203. That's our target temperature. So hopefully that's not too complicated to look at, but let's just quickly go for it. So at 225, 45 minutes for 9 pounds is a 7-hour cook time. I'm going to rest for 2 hours, so we've got a total of a 9-hour cook. Okay, so if we got 9 hours total and we want to eat at 5 p.m, that means we've got to stick it on at 8 a.m. So we've got a 7-hour cook time and then 2 hours to rest. Also, this is an approximate guide, so if for example you find it cooks quicker than what you're expecting, then there's not a problem in taking it off, just letting it rest for a little bit longer until you're ready to eat. I mean, ultimately you can hold it for hours. If you have a decent cooler, you can hold it for hours and it's not a problem. I mean, if you're like guests turn up at 5 o'clock and they're all eating and it's not quite ready, then unfortunately they've got to wait. That's just the way it is. Anyway, so that's the plan, and what you see here is that I've got a second bit of paper underneath, or the second half of the paper underneath, and what I will do is I will record actually how it goes. So what time did I get it on, what temperature did I roll at, that sort of thing. I find it really useful because then I can go back, I can have a look at what I was meant to do and what actually happened, and see kind of like where I went wrong or what changes I need to make, or what worked well, what didn't work so well. But there you go, so that's the plan. Okay, so this is our 15 minutes to let that rub adhere. We've got a plan. I'm just going to stick some meat probes in, some meter probes in. So I've got a meter block, which I find phenomenally helpful, and the reason being is that you can have up to 4 probes. Also you can have them in different bits of meat, but I like to, particularly when I'm doing a brisket, I like to stick a probe on in each end. So I'm going to put one up here, and then I'm going to put one in here. Okay, so I'm trying to get that probe roughly in the middle of the point and then roughly in the middle of the flat, and that'll give me an idea of roughly where those either bits are, and I can know how I can adjust the fire as and when I need to. Okay, so let's put this on the pit and get rolling. So I've got the point end, which has got a lot more fat towards the fire, and then I've got the flat over this side, and you can see by the way I've shaped it, it's pretty aerodynamic, so hopefully that smoke will just sweep over here as it goes out on its way out the stack. So we're not going to look at this again for another 3 hours at least. I want to get decent smoke on here, let it settle, let that rub just adhere nicely, and we'll get that bark, and you'll see that beautiful mahogany colour start to form on this. So let's close that down. So the next little thing I'm going to do is use some Wagyu beef tallow. So I've got a little pot of it here, and all I'm going to simply do is get a load of this, stick it in a pan, and I'm going to put that on the smoker, and basically until it's ready to wrap, this is going to be in the smoker. It's going to melt, it's going to have all that smoke going over it as well, so it just adds that extra little element. It's just another little trick that you can do just to get more moisture into it, more flavour into it, so when you take that bite at the end, it's just amazing. So just going to stick this in. So you can also see I've got a water pan in here as well. So I keep a water pan, I don't keep a particularly deep one, but I keep a water pan in here as well, and that just helps to add moisture into the cook chamber and just helps that smoke stick to the meat as well. It's been 3 hours now. This pit has been running like an absolute dream. It's been running around 275, up and down a little bit, but pretty much spot on the whole 3 hours. Now it's time to check this brisket and see how we're doing. Oh, look at how good that is looking. You've got a beautiful, beautiful bark that's formed on there. That's absolutely gorgeous. That's firm to the touch. Not scratching off or anything like that. That is perfect. The colour on that is absolutely gorgeous. You can see you've got a little bit of water collecting on there. Don't worry about that too much. We'll tip that off in a second, but that's just where it's collecting. Looks like when it was butchered, it's got a bit of a weird cut there, but that's okay. We'll deal with that, it's not a problem. Okay, so as we've seen, it's a perfect time to wrap now. It's hit 165 internal temperature. The bark is beautifully formed, got that beautiful mahogany colour. Perfect, perfect time to wrap it. So I've got 2 bits of butcher paper here, which I've overlapped one over the other. I'm going to get that tallow out and I'm going to soak that butcher paper on top of that. So I don't put it directly onto the meat because I think it softens up the bark a bit too much. But if I put it on the paper, still get that moisture and the flavour in there, and also it just makes the paper a bit more pliable, so it's a little bit easier to do. So when we're actually wrapping it, I'm going to put it here and I'm going to try and keep really nice tight folds on the actual paper, tuck it in nice and tight, and when I finish it will be meat side up still. So I want to try and keep the fat side up, so where the probe's sticking in the top, that's obviously the fat side. We're going to keep that on the top, so when we put it back on the smoker, that'll be back on the top. Right, so let's grab the tallow first. So I haven't put too much in there. Joys of cooking outside. Hang on. Right, that should be good. Okay, so let's wrap this. So when you do it, fold in the sides. Be careful of these probes because you don't want to rip the paper. So fold in the side first. And then give them a bit of a crease. Fold it over. Good. Fold that crease in. Like that. And then fold it over again. Whereas that's a little bit long, we'll just give that a pull back. When it's a little bit long, we'll just tuck that under. Perfect. So again, meat sides up. We'll stick this back on first and then we'll jet back. Perfect. Right, let's check back in a little while. So just to recap what we've done today. So we've taken a 4 kilo brisket, we cooked it at 275 until the internal temperature was 165, but more importantly the bark was spot on. It was beautifully formed, we had that lovely mahogany colour, it was looking stunning. Then we wrapped it and carried on cooking at 275 until it reached an internal temperature of 203. Then we've literally taken it off and I've put it in the cooler and we just let it rest. We've let it hang out, we've left all those juices redistribute throughout the meat, and oh, I just can't wait now. So without any further delays, let's unwrap this and let's have a look. Oh, you can see the way that is bending. You can see all the juice. Oh, I'm going to have to be quick. It's like Christmas. Look at that. All the juices, I've got to be careful because all the juices that are in here, we're going to pull those back on top so we don't lose any of that flavour. The smell that's coming from that is amazing. Okay, so I've taken out the butcher's paper now and it's time to slice this. I cannot wait. So when you come to slicing the brisket, when you do the point, you start from this way and you work across to about here. Oh, look at that. Look how juicy. I know you shouldn't squeeze it, but you can't help it. That is absolutely gorgeous. You've got that beautiful smoke ring going all around there, and it is so moist and tender. And take one final slice from here. Look at that. There is no give at all on that. And let's just do the pull test. Look at that, there is no effort at all in that. Well, it's definitely time. Give it a taste. That is gorgeous. That is absolutely gorgeous. That is well worth all that hard work to get those flavours. So we've now tried a bit of the flat, now it's time to try the point. So you turn it 90 degrees and you cut that. Oh, would you look at that? That is beautiful. That fat is beautifully rendered down. It is so juicy and moist. Oh my goodness. That is what you want. That is the money shot right there. That is perfect. I couldn't ask for any better than that. Now the other thing I will say, that if you cut it and you don't want it, because as soon as you cut this, it's going to start going dry. So when you cut it, just stick it up like that, and that'll just keep that nice and moist. It'll stop it oxidizing, and you can just cut it as and when you want. One thing you shouldn't do is slice an entire brisket straight from the off, because by the time you get to eat it, it'll be all dry and nobody wants that. All that hard work will be ruined. Look, you've been watching Big Al's BBQ. If you like the video, please hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, and please turn on your notifications so you catch all my future videos. But until then, I'll catch you in the next video.